going to hear some voices from the community. So first, I'd like to welcome up from the Jane Addams Senior Caucus, Mr. Reggie Griffin. Reggie, where are you at?
Down. Good afternoon. My name is Reggie Griffin, and I'm a board member of the Jane Addams Senior Caucus and the Jane Addams Seniors in Action. The members of the caucus and I are joining this march because we are fed up, fed up with being ignored by our so-called elected officials. In addition to being a senior myself, I'm a home care worker for another caucus member known as John Johnson. Because of the lack of a state budget, John has been forced to pay out of pocket for medications, home care services, and other essential services. John lives in a public housing on a fixed income. He's being forced to choose between a decent meal and essential services, and that ain't right. We have a governor and a legislature that do not care about people suffering all over the state, regardless of age. Instead, they are worried about their own political positions, pocketbooks, and the profits of their corporate donors. We want people first, not profits. Being seniors, we have learned to survive. I see all of you today doing what is necessary to make sure our communities can continue to survive and live a dignified life in our golden years. A caucus member, I think he's over here to the side here, Dr. Al Klinger, is going to walk the 200 miles from Chicago to Springfield. And the great thing about this, he is 91 years old. He knows this is what it takes for us to survive, and he's a doctor, so he can definitely know this. I am honored to stand with you today because I want Illinois to value my work. I want Illinois to value JJ's life and allow him to age with dignity. I want our so-called elected leaders to pass a people and planet first budget that will tax the 1% in order to fully fund home care and other critical public services in Illinois. We all must end up in Springfield at the end of this month, to continue to fight for our survival. I present you with a challenge. How many of us will make it to Springfield between now and the end of this month? Will you beat me there? Will you beat me there? Will you beat me there?
Give it up for Reggie again, that was awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Dominic Marlowe, and I'm a leader with Student Action at UIC and the People's Lobby. After the recession, my family was hit hard. My stepfather was laid off as a substitute English teacher at a community college downstate in Pinckneyville. At the time, he was studying for medical school to become a doctor. He was looking at tens of thousands of dollars in student debt, just like I am now at UIC. That ain't right. My mom is also a teacher and a school nurse, and she can barely make ends meet after he lost his job to support our family. In 2009, there was a huge natural disaster that wiped out power in Southern Illinois for over a week. At the time, I went to stay with my sister while my parents cleaned up our house. What I didn't know at the time was that my stepfather was suffering from depression. Upon my return, my mom told me that my stepfather had shot himself and he had taken his own life. Later in life, I also got depression. And I never got the help I needed because I was afraid of being a burden on my family. But I've learned it was not my fault. That burden came from something other than my family that we had no control over. My stepdad took his life. He is no longer alive and with us because when the economy crashed, there was no safety net. No resources to pull us out of this crisis. Instead, like countless families in Illinois, he slipped through the cracks. Those who profit from cuts to social services, who benefit from the deaths of our families, those who line their pockets with money that should be going to the shared good of all, the corporations and the politicians who bow down to them, they are to blame. Springfield and its corrupt leaders, Republicans and Democrats, are to blame for the death of my stepfather. They created and maintain this hopeless state. Without a budget now for almost 2 years. That ain't right. 2 years. And for those 2 years, and for a lot longer time, 2/3 of publicly traded corporations in Illinois pay zero income tax. Zero corporate income tax. These millionaires and billionaires bought Bruce Rauner, the governor's mansion in Springfield, and they immediately proposed more cuts and more pain for the most hurt and the most vulnerable in Illinois. 2 years later, and still without a budget, I'm pissed. I am angry. And I have a message for those who profit off my family's death. I'm marching to Springfield to tell our politicians to pass the People and Planet First budget, to put us and the planet before profits, and to stop killing us, our neighbors, and people like me and my loved ones. Thank you.
How's everybody doing today? That's what's up. Hello, my name is Ralph Edwards, and I am a board member of One Northside. I was the former program manager for Ceasefire in Uptown and Rogers Park. I was laid off because of funding cuts towards Ceasefire. That ain't right. Ceasefire is a program that caters to individuals that are high risk for violence and gang involvement. We work with them to mediate conflicts, make sure they have access to services, and work to reduce violence in our community. The uptick in Chicago shootings began in 2015 at the exact same time when ceasefire was cut. And that ain't right. And other community services had to cut back on programs because of budget cuts. We need money to fund these programs that are proven to prevent violence. The 1% and big corporations benefit from our low tax rate and loopholes in our corporate tax code. They continue to amass their wealth and profits while 3-year-olds get killed and shot every day. And that ain't right. It's crazy that those of us on the front line of violence are unemployed. We have the skills and the relationships needed to reduce violence in the community. But we need the resources to put them to use. But instead, we're watching kids steadily get killed, while Springfield continues to take from our community, defunding programs that prevent violence and they leave them with tax problems and financial support. Funding for these programs, like Ceasefire, should be mandatory as well as the police. How many more kids does it take for Springfield to understand, excuse me? How many more kids getting shot in the head will it take before our elected officials say enough is enough? The cost of violence in our community and prevention programs equal the same amount Illinois would raise if we were to tax the profits from offshore drilling. The pain of the deaths of our children should be greater than the pain of making corporates pay their fair share. We need Springfield legislation to govern runs to pass the people and planet budget first, which will close corporate tax loopholes and use the money to invest in communities like mine and programs like Ceasefire and other vital prevention programs. Until then, the blood is on your hand. Enough is enough.
Good afternoon. My name is Marty Chisholm. I am a leader with National Nurses United, Reclaim Chicago, and Fair Economy, Illinois. I have been a registered nurse for 25 years at Cook County Hospital, taking care of Cook County's most vulnerable and neglected patients. I am here today to talk about why I am marching to Springfield. My great-grandmother, Bertie Kegler, was a civil rights activist. She marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Congressman John Lewis in the historic march from Selma to Montgomery. 10 months later, in January of 1966, despite having received death threats, she traveled with 4 black civil rights activists and a 27-year-old white college student to testify at a hearing held by U.S. Attorney General Robert Kennedy. On her way back home, she was murdered by Klan's terrorists that ran her car off the road. She and her 78-year-old mentor were decapitated. I was 5 years old when the pallbearers rolled her casket out the church. I touched it with my little hands. I promised her I would not cry and I would not give up. My great-grandmother felt compelled to march. Now it is 50 years later and I feel compelled to march. Too many people are suffering in the state of Illinois. Poverty and the lack of opportunities have taken their toll. Last year, more than 700 people died from gun violence. 2 of those lost were my loved ones. That's why I'm marching. I worked for 8 years in the dialysis unit at Stronger Hospital. Many dialysis patients end up in kidney failure because they don't have access to the basic health care they need. That's why I'm marching, to create universal single-payer health care in Illinois. I want to come together with everyone at this rally and across the state to win our people and plan the first budget. I refused to give up when I was 5, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna give up when I'm 56.
Thank you so much to these beautiful speakers. Give a hand for them, aren't they incredible? Next up, we have some words from our allies, because we can't all do this alone, can we? So we have a speaker from Grassroots Collaborative and SCIU. Her name is Maxine Chapman. Maxine.
Hello, everybody. Bear with me now. This is my first time coming up speaking in front of people like this, okay? My name is Maxine Chapman. I've been a home care provider for over 10 years. And I am a very, very, very active member of SEIU. SEIU. Governor Rauner and President Trump both like to talk about how great things used to be. Bear with me, you guys. Saying they're going to turn things back around to make us great again? Really? But for me and my family and my community, things were never that great. I'm looking at school closings, hospitals closing, lack of jobs, no real source of income coming into our communities. Governor Rauner claims that he's holding up passing the budget because we have to reform Springfield first. That's what he says. I agree Springfield needs a few changes, but what Governor Rauner is doing, he's not for reform. He's doing the same thing that Springfield has done for decades. Cutting more services, taking money out of our neighborhoods, disinvesting in our children's education, and giving away our resources to cooperatives, to co-ops, cheating taxes. We cannot solve our problems with cuts. Working middle class families has been cut to the bone enough. Illinois is the 5th largest economy in the country and ranks the bottom of the barrel, okay? It ain't right. Springfield has failed our communities, which is why I have been working with the grassroots collaborations with the people against agendas, on the people's agenda, and a bold new vision to put the people's first in Illinois. In conclusion, I would like everybody to raise their hands and say power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Veronica Gloria, and I'm the Executive Director of the Spanish Community Center in Joliet, Illinois, one of the stops of the march to Springfield. I'm a proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, and I was a first-generation college graduate from Harvard University. After graduation, I had many opportunities, but I decided to come back home and work alongside my community that has always been committed to helping one another. At ED, I'm a proud partner of the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and we've been working around the clock to serve as a one-stop shop of social and immigration services to the state of Illinois as a welcoming center, as a partner of the New Americans Initiative and Immigrant Family Resource Program. In recent months, immigrants and refugees are feeling under attack from the Trump and Rauner administrations. And as of today, the situation has gotten worse for us here in Illinois. Instead of feeling safe, we are under attack. The Immigrant Services line was zeroed out by Governor Rauner, again for fiscal year 18. It was restored in the stopgap of 2017 for $6 million, which funded New Americans Initiative and the Immigrant Family Resource Program. But starting July 1st, we do not have funds. for vital services for immigrants and refugees. 60 different immigrant serving agencies operating in 59 languages, serving over 102,000 clients every year through these funds are looking to be completely zeroed out. And at the Spanish Community Center, our families come in fear of what may happen if their families are separated. We have long-time residents eager to apply for citizenship so that they can vote for the first time. And we help people with a variety of cases, helping overcome barriers that will threaten their quality of life. What many don't know is that when we lose these programs, our centers will be fighting to keep serving these people. It's very important to know that the governor has again attacked the immigrant services line item in this fiscal year. The House has passed a stopgap budget that includes immigrant services, and we await to see what passes. The Spanish Community Center and organizations like ours are strikingly aware of how this will choke our programs and the lifelines we provide to thousands of people as of June 30th. We must let the governor and all of our legislators know today that the immigrant and refugee community of Illinois makes up 14% of the population, and we will fight to restore the immigrant services line item. Our leaders in Springfield must also pass the Illinois Trust Act. This does 4 things. It protects our community, and I please encourage all of you to look up the Trust Act and support it, because it's right, just, and necessary. Thank you.
Thank you to our allies for speaking on this. We talk a lot about Bruce Rauner and what he's done to this state, going 2 years without a budget because of him, putting $50 million into his re-election campaign for an election in 2 years. But it's not just about him. It's about people like Mike Madigan, who's been a representative for 46 years and has been screwing us over ever since. And it's about people like Ken Griffin, who put millions of dollars into Bruce Rauner's campaign and makes $1.8 billion and rising every year. Is that right? Is that moral? Is that just? It is not easy to talk about our experiences and what is going on in the state, because the pain and suffering incurred as a result of cuts for all but the wealthiest are isolating. It can make us feel that we're alone. But look at all of us here. Hundreds of us gathered here, and billions more sympathize with all of you and all of us. They know what it's like to be disregarded due to their income status, immigration status, gender, sexuality, race, disability, and the list goes on. None of us are alone here, and at this moment, I would like to welcome up all members of the clergy and lay people. Regardless of your religious views, assembled here today, we are all a higher love. We speak of transcending and dismantling borders because of this radical love for our fellow humans and for all living things on this earth. Clergy, lay people, show us that love. Get on up.
Good afternoon. I am the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Carol, beloved child of God, and at the present time the director of the Perot Multicultural Center at the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago in Hyde Park. I invite you at this time to imagine with me. Imagine the world as it could be, how the world should be. Imagine if our leaders understood and worked to address what Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, mentor and teacher of Martin Luther King Jr., described as the 7 deadly social sins. Number 1, politics without principle. Imagine if politicians function from the principle of the common good and not issues related to territory, control, or power. Number 2, wealth without work. Imagine if the wealthy used their wealth to address poverty and climate change, health and safe communities, famine, and the rising ocean levels. 3, commerce without morality. Imagine if people were not treated as commodities, if commerce was focused on the well-being of all. 4, pleasure without conscience. Imagine if the pursuit of bread and circuses, back to the Roman Empire, did not happen at the expense of the poor, the winged, the four-legged, the leg crawlers, the swimmers, the trees, the rocks, and the stones. 5, education without character. Imagine if education valued the lived experiences of all peoples and did not privilege one set of educational values over all others. 6, science without humanity. Imagine if scientific knowledge were available for the benefit of all, that medicine was affordable to all, that humanity could see the hand of the Creator in all scientific advances. Finally, 7, worship without sacrifice. Imagine if humanity worshiped God, Allah, Yahweh, Creator, in spirit and in truth, realizing that communal sacrifices lead to common successes and contentment. The People and Planet First budget will take us from the state of Illinois as it is to the state of Illinois as it should be. A state where everyone has equitable access to schools, jobs, a sustainable environment, health quality, health care, high quality health care, and more. Imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pero. My name is Rabbi Lauren Henderson, and I'm a rabbi in Mishkan, Chicago, a Jewish spiritual community here in the city of Chicago, a member of the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, and a member at One North Side. Marching is not new to people of my faith. When the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, Moses and his brother Aaron went to Pharaoh to demand their freedom over and over and over again. But every time that it seemed that Pharaoh was ready to let them go, his heart grew hard, and he kept them in chains. And life grew more difficult for all of Egypt, not just the slaves, but for every single person caught up in an unjust system. And so, with God's help, the Israelites went out, because marching across the sea and into the desert was the only thing that could transform hearts of stone into hearts of flesh and blood. By leaving the comfort of your homes and making yourselves vulnerable, you, our marchers, shine a light into our essential common humanity. We all share the same beating heart of flesh underneath, no matter how coarse and cynical we have become, and we march to show the world what unites us. You march for us, and you march for all in the world who are facing the monstrous reality of corruption, of racism, and of greed. You march for the planet and the people who are being sacrificed for the sake of corporate gain. And our prayer today is that this march not only liberates us and our state, but that it will be one step toward the world as it should be, a place where people and planet live, thrive, and strengthen one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Lauren. I am Reverend Vicki Johnson, the pastor of St. Thomas Lutheran Church in South Shore. Imagine if the state of Illinois put people and planet first. If they did this, then the members of my church, St. Thomas Lutheran, and my community would be able to feel safe as we walk the streets of South Shore day and night. We would be able to have gainful employment in our community instead of people just hanging out on corners with nothing to do. We would be able to imagine a bright and wonderful future for our children instead of high dropout rates. But right now, we don't have this. In fact, things have not gotten better, but things have gotten worse. If our politicians valued our planet and our people, it would be clear that not only do our lives matter, but our lives are deeply valuable. And they should be valuable by our state and our society. If Illinois puts people and planets first, we could create communities together that meet our particular needs, whether downstate in rural Illinois or right on the south side of Chicago where I live and minister. People and planet first means we empower the needs of our residents, whoever they may be, wherever they might be from. We are not here for handouts. We want to take ownership of our communities. We want to create an Illinois where people of all kinds can live in peace and harmony. The time is now. The place is from Chicago to Springfield. Let's not just talk about it, but let's be about it. You have to stay and you can't go. Remember, let's be sure to pray. God bless you.
Hello, marchers. My name is Wayne Miller. I am the Bishop of the Metropolitan Chicago Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And I serve as President of the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago. I want to start by sharing just a little bit of wisdom with you today from an apostle by the name of Paul, who once said, "Beloved, do not consider that I have yet made the goal my own, but this one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining toward what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the heavenly call of God." Well, it is hard to keep straining forward if you don't know the goal. But our eyes are on the prize, and we do know what it is that we are straining forward for on this date. We march toward the prize of a society in which government assumes its rightful responsibility to provide a sufficient, sustainable livelihood for everyone. We march toward the prize of a society in which equal access to quality health care and human services is given to everyone simply by virtue of being a beloved child of God. We march toward the prize of a community in which excellent public education is not only available to all, it is fairly and adequately funded for all. We march toward the prize of a society that does not freely put automatic weapons in the hands of gangsters and criminals that are slaughtering our children in the streets every day. We march toward the prize of a nation where all children of God are welcome. Welcome in this place no matter what language they speak and no matter where they came from. A nation where families are sacred and are not being torn apart every day by small-minded and small-hearted immigration and enforcement policies. We march toward the prize of a world in which walls of exclusion and oppression are the things we tear down, instead of the things we spend billions to build up. We march toward the prize of a society in which addiction is an illness to be treated instead of a crime to be punished. And a society in which the color of your skin does not quadruple your chances of going to prison. We march toward the prize of a government committed to preserving our natural world and its precious resources rather than exploiting creation into oblivion and leaving a desert behind. And every single day this is being stolen from us. Is that right? But the prize is there, so strain forward. Whatever is behind us, reach for what is still possible in front of us. Fix your eyes on that prize and know that the God of justice and peace and love will be beside you and blessing you every step of the way.
Good afternoon, freedom fighters. My name is Mike Plager from St. Sabina Church. What's up, freedom fighters? I'd like to call forward right now the Through Marchers, a brave band of people willing to bring our message, our hopes, and our dreams all the way from Chicago to Springfield. Through Marchers, would you please come forward at this time and introduce yourself? When the children of Israel were enslaved in the land of Egypt, God spoke to Moses and told Moses God's dreams of freedom for all people. God told Moses, go tell Pharaoh and put them before him. And so Moses did. He went to Pharaoh's courts and told him, let my people. He said, give us freedom. And when Pharaoh refused, and Pharaoh threatened to reinforce the status quo with walls and guns and fear, what did Moses do? What did the people do? They marched. What did they do? What did they do? What did they do in Montgomery? What did they do in Memphis? What did they do in Selma? What are we going to do now? So today, family in Illinois, when the politicians in Springfield who watch us on TV from their wine clubs, drinking from $30,000 bottles and wearing $10,000 suits, when they sit in their luxury viewing us from afar or not at all, and tell us we can't have a budget, that we can't have good food and education and a way out of this hell that they've created by racism and greed that is causing violence and the killing of our children. When Ronner and Madigan hear our views for a happy and healthy Illinois, they tell us no. But what are we going to do? 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 At this time, I invite all the faith leaders with me to come forward and stretch out their hands. And I'm asking everybody in this crowd, put your hand on the shoulder of the person in front of you as we pray together for our sisters and brothers to embark on this great journey. Be connected to someone and let your prayer go forth. God of liberation, God of life, you created all things good, and your spirit moves your people in ways of compassion and justice and peace. As these marchers leave this place, we pray that their marching will not be in vain. When they go weary, give them strength. When they lose sight of your vision, fill them with hope. When they encounter your people and planet as they march the highways and the byways of Illinois, let them share your compassion and love spill out of them. May they also encounter and be inspired by the great work of love and be kindled anew with a new fire for liberation and for justice for all. To you, who is known by many names and approached in many ways by many people, and the people of God said, amen, 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 amen. And now it's time to march. It's time to do what? It's time to do what? Please follow those in the neon vests. Follow them as we begin.